and we, filled the room. And I think when a lot of people think about events, they think about these huge mega events and like, I could never do that. But my whole thing is, if you want to put on an event for 10 or 12 people and they're the right 10 or 12 people, that's great. So, that's one of the things I often tell people is start small.
Welcome to the Laws of Business podcast. Here, we will share the skills you need to make your business a success. Learn about goal setting, productivity, time management, marketing, and much more. Hear inspiring stories with today's best business leaders and join a hub of thousands of passionate entrepreneurs across the world. And now, here's your host, Jamil Jama.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Law of Business. I'm Jamil Jama, and I interview entrepreneurs that can help you to start and grow your business. And today, you're going to be meeting Rich Brooks. And before I start the interview with Rich Brooks, I'd just like to tell you all the topics we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about how to start your own events. Rich Brooks will be telling us how you can start your own events. And before all of that, before the nitty-gritty, I'll tell you all who Rich Brooks is and what he does and how he can help you to grow your business. Rich Brooks is the founder and president of Flyte New Media, a digital agency in Portland, Maine, which is celebrating 20 years in business. Congratulations, Rich, because 20 years is a long time, because most businesses fail, I think, in 5 years. From what I know, most businesses fail. 80% of businesses fail in 5 years, but you've been going on for 20 years, which is really awesome, which is very hard. Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's a nationally recognized speaker on entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and social media. Rich founded the Agents of Change, an annual conference and weekly podcast that focuses on search, social, and mobile marketing. He is the author of The Lead Machine, The Small Business Guide to Digital Marketing, a popular and well-received book that helps entrepreneurs and marketers reach more of their ideal customers online. He has appeared in Inc. magazine, The Huffington Post, FastCompany.com, CNN.com, The Social Media Examiner, and many other news sources for stories on digital marketing. Rich is the tech guru on the evening news show 207, which airs on the NBC affiliates in Maine and teaches web marketing and social media courses for entrepreneurs at the University of Southern Maine's Center for Continuing Education. So that's Rich Brooks's bio. Rich, awesome bio, Rich. So 20 years, that's a long time. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jamil. It is a long time. And actually, it just became 21 years, so let's not sell it short. But no, it's been an amazing ride. And obviously, things have changed quite a bit running a digital agency over 21 years.
Awesome, Rich. Rich, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for taking your time out to do this interview. I appreciate it so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of talking about something that I feel pretty passionate about.
And what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about events, right?
Yeah, let's definitely talk about events. It's funny because here I am, a guy who was running a digital agency for 21 years, and all of a sudden I want to sit here and talk about real live events. Now, obviously, these two things overlap because for us, putting on an event means a lot of digital marketing leading up to it. But the bottom line is I have found that, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's been running my own business for so long, one of the things I'm always looking to do is separate myself from my competition, because there's a lot of good digital agencies here in Portland, Maine, and of course throughout the country and throughout the world. So I have found that putting on live events has really kind of that's our differentiator in this industry. So that's been really interesting, and I'd love to share some of the stuff that I've learned over the years, because I think that if people are willing to try this, if your listeners, your audience are willing to try putting on live events, it can really be a game changer for them too.
I tried doing that a couple of years ago, but I just wasn't disciplined enough to do, because I wanted to start kind of like not TED Talk, but entrepreneur stories, because my podcast used to be called Entrepreneur Stories, but for meetups. So they would come to I'll rent a place, and people will come and share their story. People go on stage and share their story, their entrepreneur story. So they'll practice their public speaking skills for entrepreneurs.
I think that's a great idea. How'd it go?
That's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't disciplined enough.
Okay. I couldn't. Well, maybe after today's conversation, you'll be ready to reboot that.
It was time consuming as well.
It
But it was
is.
fun. It was fun, and you meet a lot of interest. And it's better to meet people in person as well.
It is, yeah. I mean, obviously, we can't meet people from all over the world all the time. That's why digital marketing, social media is so powerful. But there is nothing like meeting somebody face to face, breaking bread, having a drink, shaking a hand, whatever it may be. So, that's one of the reasons why I think putting on events is really good. And I hear what you're saying, that there's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's other things that take precedence. When I first started, my first event was literally we rented out the Chamber of Commerce, which is something they have in almost every city here in America, just a place where business happens. We rented out the room. It might have even been free. I don't remember. And we maybe got 10 or 12 people, and I spoke on search engine optimization, and a woman I partnered with spoke on general marketing. And we, filled the room. And I think when a lot of people think about events, they think about these huge mega events and like, I could never do that. But my whole thing is, if you want to put on an event for 10 or 12 people and they're the right 10 or 12 people, that's great. So, that's one of the things I often tell people is start small. Maybe it's just something, test the waters. If you and I were sitting down and you said, Rich, I want to do this, but I feel it might be overwhelming. I'd be like, let's just see if we can get 10 people around a room sharing those stories. And then if there's interest in it, then we might build it up. But for me, when I think about putting on events, what it's evolved into is I definitely don't want to lose money. I'd like to make money. And on top of that, I want to generate leads for my business. So I often, go on.
No, go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, the way I often frame this is speakers, sponsors, and seats. And we can talk about, go into depth in all three, but basically most successful events, and you can measure success on a lot of different levels, use most of those or use all of them. So speakers are who's literally going to be up on stage. And in your case, the one that you mentioned, obviously it could be a lot of people. For some people, it may just be them. They may not want to share the stage with somebody else. And then there's sponsors. And sponsors are incredibly helpful because otherwise we'd be losing money every year. It's because we have connected with people in our industry and in our geographical area who want to be in front of my audience, that they'll give us money to get in front of that audience. That helps basically pay our bills. And then the third thing is seats, which is basically you just got to fill them, because even if you have speakers and sponsors, if nobody shows up, the event is a failure. So if you focus on those three things, you should have a successful event. And I'm more than happy to dive a little bit deeper into any one of those categories if you have questions.
Yeah, could you do that, please, Rich?
Sure. Well, all right, so let's just go in order. So speakers, a lot of times I get questions about like, who should I bring on and how much should I pay them? Do I have to pay them? That sort of stuff. When you're first starting out, you may not be able to afford paying people. So in your case, it sounded like this was something that'd be more communal, so you don't have to pay people. We have a social media breakfast in town that brings up 3 speakers every month. Except for some occasional big names that come into town, those people never get paid or compensated either. For my event, we don't have a budget for paying speakers. Now that we've got a little bit more established, we can basically budget money to fly certain people in, and we pay for everybody's hotel room, and we take them out to a nice lobster dinner because in Maine, lobster is everything. So we compensate them that way. But I do know that some speakers, they're like, listen, I need to get paid or it's not worth my time. And that's not a problem, but I just can't. This is an event for you then. And when you're thinking about speakers, think about the kind of people, like if you get a speaker, will they bring their own audience? How much marketing are they going to do for you? Or are they basically just going to show up, deliver content, and then move on? And also you need to kind of educate your speakers in terms of what they can and can't do on stage, because some speakers, if you're not going to pay them, expect to be able to pitch from the stage. And that may not be the event you want to go with. So over the years, we've developed like a speaker's agreement that kind of says, here's what we're going to do for you. Here's what you're going to do for us. And we've gotten to the point now where we ask for like a 30-second to 2-minute video where the person kind of talks about what they're going to be teaching and how excited they are to be part of the Agents of Change, which is the name of our conference. And that's gone a long way towards improving the experience. And occasionally we have 1 or 2 spots set aside for sponsors, which kind of leads us into the next topic. But what we do is we offer certain sponsors the ability to present. They still have to present from an education standpoint. They can't just be up there pitching their own products or services. That's not what they're there for. but obviously the slides might include examples from their business, and we promote them as well. And hopefully if they do a good enough job, there's going to be somebody in the audience who will come up and say, hey, can I talk to you about, giving you some business? But that's a lot of the speaker side of things. And for sponsors, that for me was always the toughest thing. Like, I have no problem selling somebody a website or search engine optimization. I always struggled with getting sponsors. And so I'm not an expert in it, but I have gotten better. And one of the things that I do right at the beginning when I approach a new sponsor is I just say, like, what are you looking to get out of this? Like, why would you want to give me hundreds or thousands of dollars to be part of my event? And a lot of times they'll say things like, oh, we just want to be associated with your brand. You've got a good brand. Other times they just want to get in front of my audience. And other times it might be more specific about, like, we want to generate 10 quality leads for our sales team. And so whatever their goals are, then I've got some levels of different types of sponsorships, but I'll try and tailor something specifically so they get what they're looking for. One sponsor last year wanted to have a meet and greet with our keynote speaker. So, we made that happen for them. So those are some things. And the other thing is, if you don't have like an established brand, or you're just getting started, or you're struggling to get sponsors, consider in-kind trades. So for example, we have our event at a local university. It's a very nice space. And they require us to go through them for meals, but they let us have the networking event at the end of the day. We can bring in whatever we want, and we don't have to go through the school. Well, there's a great local pizza place in town who brings $500 worth of pizza to feed our audience for free. All we need to do is give them 2 tickets, which is really, depending on how you look at it, between $0 and $50 of expense for me. So I'm able to get like $500 of pizza for my audience for $50 in a little promotion. We get all the beer for free because we work with a local brewery who just wants to be visible. Same thing with, we have free spirits there because we have a sponsor who a brand new distillery. They don't have the money to sponsor us, but they can bring in all this free product. And so we work with the university. It's got to be a 3-way trade. It's a little crazy in Maine. But so then we get all this free stuff. And there's a lot of other services that we get for free because we give them some visibility. Local newspapers will give us free advertising if we give them some tickets to the show and stuff like that. So that's a great way to really reduce your costs and make it a much more affordable event for you as well.
Events also give the person hosting an event authority. He's seen as an authority figure, right?
Jamil, that's exactly right. Yeah. Now, there's a couple of things you can do to do this too. So the first year I did it, I had Chris Brogan and Amy Porterfield and Derek Halpern as my 3 big speakers. But then I stood on stage with them. So all of a sudden I was elevated to their level, even though they're much bigger names than I was. But that really gave me, that kind of elevated me. And even when you're on stage and you're introducing these people, it elevates your status as well. And then you get, like over the years we built it so we get about 400 people in the space now. Well, suddenly that's a lot. You don't need to be that big, or you could be bigger. But I'm just saying, we've got 400 seems to be a sweet spot for us. So that's what we shoot for. All of a sudden, like, you're the person introducing people. You're the person who's like part of the conversation. And what I've discovered is, even though Agents of Change and Flyte New Media have different names, is that the visibility Flyte gets through the Agents of Change conference, all of a sudden we get pulled into a lot more meetings. And when people are behind closed doors discussing who should be the digital agency that they're going to hire, Flyte New Media at least has to be part of the conversation. And I've seen us get jobs directly from the conference that are sometimes worth $20,000 to $30,000 more over the lifetime of that client. So even if you're breaking even on an event like the Agents of Change, you're still making, I don't know if you can hear, we've got a giant cruise ship that just came in behind us, some on the water. We've got, even if we're breaking even, that so much pays for itself if we just get one job out of the entire project. And when I say break even, just to be clear with your audience, so we make money on the event, but we, Flyte New Media, put in a lot of man hours towards making the event a success. So if we're paying ourselves at close to our regular rate, that's when we break even, lose a little bit of money. So that's why sponsorships are so important. And that's how we come up with our final numbers on whether or not this was a successful event or an unsuccessful event.
Going to events changed my life. It changed my mindset permanently. My mindset. What completely changed how I got an entrepreneur mindset is I went to one event, and that event completely changed my mindset, and my mindset hasn't been the same ever since. So events change people permanently, right?
Absolutely.
Would you agree? Okay. But is hosting an event more effective? Would that?
You mean, is it more effective in terms of like running your own? Are you talking about hosting it at your office or hosting it elsewhere, or just you being in charge of it rather than attending?
No, say hosting your event and attending. Would that have more effect? Would that have more of an impact on your mindset than being an attendant at the event? Do you get the question?
No, I understand. It's a good question. I think they're two different things. So if I'm going to a new event, it could totally change my mindset on how to approach a new thing, and that's amazing. Plus, there's networking opportunities. When you're hosting, like, I don't even get to see these days. I only see about half the sessions because I'm usually running around. I'm the master of ceremonies of my own event, so I can't sit still. So it's hard for me, with the exception of maybe my opening and closing keynote, to be in the room with people. Usually I'm making sure that things are running smoothly, or at least checking in with people. So I do think it's a kind of a different thing. Now, for a smaller event, and by the way, we put on events that have 6 people max. So we at Flyte do these things called master classes, where we'll choose a certain subject like Facebook ads or Google Analytics, and we'll bring people into our offices, limited to 6 people, and we consider that an event. Obviously, at a much smaller scale, and it's a different situation than something as big as Agents of Change. But really, like I said, any size event can work, just as long as the right people are in the room. So I would say that putting on my event doesn't necessarily change my mindset on, say, entrepreneurship or digital marketing. I might learn a thing or two, but it's more about establishing myself as an authority in the field, at least in my local community. And that does make a difference. I also have the benefit, you mentioned in my bio, that I'm on this show called 207, which is the evening news program on the NBC affiliates. Well, because I've been doing it so long, and because they don't like me, promoting my business, but every year they let me come on and talk about my conference. So, that also gives me another opportunity to get in front of people and talk to people. And other news organizations as well have reached out to me, not to talk about my company, which is boring, another business, but the event that has more of an interest for people. And so they're more willing to give me free press over it.
So how would somebody coming into this, somebody new, find speakers for their event, like speakers that have big followings?
Well, I would guess that if you're in an industry, whatever that industry is, whether it's digital marketing or dog training, you're already following people who are influencers in your industry. So one of the first things I might do is just reach out to these people and just
interview them. I think interview them.
Always. And this is the thing. At this point, I get a lot of requests for people who want to present at my conference. And my first step is always like, listen, come on my podcast. Nobody gets to get on the stage without first being a guest on my podcast. That gives me an opportunity to get to know them and whether or not they'd be a good fit for Agents of Change. There's a lot of smart people that I just don't feel necessarily are the right fit for my event. So that's fine. But if you're just getting started, interviewing people is a great way. So if you have a podcast or a blog or something like that, that's a great way to get to know people. They may already have content that they're putting out there, so you have a sense of whether or not they'd be interesting. I have a lot of people who have put on events in the past, and usually they just know people in the industry. And whether you're going to pay that person or not pay that person, or give them travel expenses or put together a stipend for them, those are all ways of incentivizing them. But a lot of times people will do it for free, especially if they don't have to travel far. So if you were putting on, something on dog training, you might find some local dog trainers who are more than happy to get up in front of that audience and speak to people because they're hoping to get business or they want visibility. Now, of course, if you're a dog trainer, then maybe you don't want to have those exact people, and you want to have people from away who won't be competing with you, or you might want to have people speaking who speak on other aspects of dog ownership, for example. So those might be some different options, but there are definitely going to be local and industry influencers that you can reach out to. And, there's no harm in asking somebody who's a big name in your industry, like, would you be willing to come in and be a keynote for us?
I feel as though to start doing events again, like the meetups after this.
Yeah, well, again, it's like it would just position you, Jamil, as like the guy to go for when it comes to business and entrepreneurship. And so I think it'd be really effective. It's been effective for us. This is our 7th year of Agents of Change. Before that, I ran another conference called Social Media FTW that had a very similar footprint. And we put on smaller events throughout the year as well. So I think this is great. And one of the things that I'd say is the toughest year is year one. So start small. But one thing I would say is have a brand. So before we did anything with Agents of Change, I had already come up with a name. I'm a huge comic book fan, so I kind of like geeky stuff. And I was trying to think of, I wanted a conference with search, social, and mobile marketing. And I had been thinking about using the word accelerant. And I'm like, it's a good word, but it's not a good name for a conference. So I went to the thesaurus and I found catalyst. And I'm like, oh, that's good too. But I didn't like any of the names. Catalyst World, Catalyst Expo, like nothing sounded right to me. And the whole idea was because social media, I said, was an accelerant, not, that's how you should look at it. Well, I went back to the thesaurus and I looked up Catalyst, and this time it had Agents of Change. And as soon as I saw that, I knew that was the name of the conference. So I couldn't get the domain name at the time. I got something similar. I called up my friend Josh Fisher, who's a great illustrator, does a lot of work actually for Chris Brogan. And I'm like, this is the brand, work with me. And we came up with 3 agents, one that represents search, one that represents social, and one that represents mobile. Develop the scheme, develop the colors. I promised myself, I'm like, I'm going to do this for 3 years minimum, and then I'll see what's going to happen. So I had branding, I had images, because I had no examples of people going to the conference because it was brand new, and I wanted to do something big. So I created my own website for it and did all this work and put together content. In that first year, we had about 315 people show up, and every year it's been creeping up a little bit, and we basically max out at 400. So it's been good. But really think through that brand early on. And if you can, hire somebody local or through Fiverr or wherever you go, and get some branding done for sure.
And Rich, is what you do, is it international or is it national?
My business does tend to be national. It's not that we can't work with people outside the U.S. It's just that I find that the time barrier is just too difficult. And to be honest, things in the U.S. often cost more than in other countries, so it's rare that somebody from another country wants to hire us when they can get somebody local for cheaper. So we tend to focus mostly on the U.S., possibly Canada.
Awesome. And Rich, would you recommend any book, any public speaking book for anybody? Or how to get rid of the fear of public speaking? Or if they have
that's a great question. I'm trying to think. The only book I ever read on public speaking was a book called Money Talks. And I want to say it's by a guy called Alan Weiss, but you'll have to double check that and put it in the show notes. And that's really specifically about making money at speaking gigs. For me, it was really just trial and error. My favorite way to share information is just talk in front of an audience, because I can immediately see if what I'm saying is falling flat or going over their heads or really hitting a pain point. And so then I can talk to people. So I personally love that energy. But you know what? If you hate being in front of people, you can put on an event. It's just don't get other speakers. You don't have to be the person necessarily on stage. So that's another option as well. You're not, just because you have stage fright doesn't mean you can't have a successful event.
Definitely. And Rich, what are your future plans right now?
Well, Jamil, I am about to go on sabbatical. Like you said, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I'm taking a month off in July. I'm going to hit the road. I've got a pop-up camper that I bought, and I'm taking my 2 daughters who are 13 and 15, and we are going to explore the United States. Actually, not the whole United States because we only have a month, but I'm taking a month off. We're going to go to Nashville. We're going to go to the Grand Canyon. We're going to go to Mount Rushmore, and then every campground in between, just so we can kind of explore things and take some time off. And I'm really looking to connect with them. So that's going to be pretty awesome. And then, of course, we have the Agents of Change conference coming up in September. So that's another thing. I've done a lot of work. My team's going to be working on it for the next month. And then, we'll really ramp things up for ticket sales as soon as I get back.
So, Rich, you see your upcoming conference. Would my listeners get any special bonuses, any discounts from you?
Jamil, for you, definitely. So if they want to head on over to theagentsofchange.com, go check out last year's sizzle reel, the highlights reel. Go check out the speakers and topics for this year. And if it looks like something that they'd enjoy, when they go to check out, there's a place for a promo code, and they can put in TLOB for the law of business and save $25 off the ticket, whatever ticket they want. So if they're planning on coming to Portland, Maine, and to be honest, Maine in September is amazing. It's warm days and cool nights.
It is recorded online as well, isn't it?
Right. So I'd love to see you in person, but I understand that your listeners are from all over. So if they can't, there is a virtual pass, and the virtual pass includes a live stream of everything on the main stage and a video recording of every single session. So that's 15 sessions in total. We've got like Joel Comm speaking this year, and Tamsin Wilson, and a bunch of other digital marketing experts. Great content. And when they buy the ticket, they also get a virtual pass for last year's conference, so they can see other sessions on demand immediately, and that includes presentations by Joel Baer, Subi Zimmerman, and a bunch of other SEO and social media experts.
Definitely. So listeners, if you want to learn how to put on a successful event and get leads and make profit, then attend this conference by Rich Brooks.
Thanks
Rich,
so much.
if anybody wanted to contact you, where could they find you?
Oh, well, I'm not too hard to find, except perhaps during my sabbatical. But other than that, I am the Rich Brooks on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and every social media platform out there. If they wanted to learn more about the Agents of Change, go to theagentsofchange.com. And if they wanted to learn more about my digital agency and check out some of the work we've done, that's at takeflyte.com, and that's FLYTE.com.
Awesome. Rich, I want to thank you so much for taking your time out to do this interview. Thank you again.
Jamil, thanks for all the great questions, and appreciate your time.
And I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in and listening. If you know anybody that this interview will benefit, please share it with them and subscribe. And I'm Jamil Jama. This is The Law of Business. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Laws of Business podcast. Find out more about us on thelawsofbusiness.com. Thank you for being a part of our journey.